How's it going, guys? It's Eclipse here and welcome to the most pointless tank within World of Tanks console, and that is the brand new premium tank that came out with the newest update within console, and that is of course the Conqueror Mark II. And this genuinely is a tank I would never ever usually be kind of against you getting within the game, but that's because this tank is fantastic within the World War II game mode. This premium, however, is a Cold War premium within Era 2. Era 2 makes this tank pretty much useless. All of the key things about the tank are the fact that, you know, on World War II you get a decent turret that somewhat bounces rounds, and you've got good accuracy, you've got good DPM to be able to actually deal with a lot of the opponents that you're going to be facing. However, on Cold War, yes, you get good accuracy, yes, you get good DPM, but all of the other factors about the tank are just so bad. The armor model is exactly the same as the Conqueror within World War II. You don't even get the space plates going around the turret. You've also got the fact that you pretty much get penned every single time through the turret, regardless of what you're coming up against, because the penetration values within Cold War are just way better, making this tank very uncomfortable to play and not very versatile, I must say. Obviously, you can still have good games. I'm not saying that you can't have a good game, but yeah, it is very much more difficult than if you were to play like an FE4211, and that is the direct comparison that we can literally, it's the same class, it's the same nation, it's got more hit points, the armor model 100% works unbelievably better than this tank does. And I guess the key comparison really, and the key thing about this tank that makes it somewhat better, I guess, is that yeah, the DPM is slightly better. You got a 3.5 second reload to do 400 damage. Yeah, slightly better, but what are you actually sacrificing? Well, you're sacrificing the armor model, you're sacrificing the mobility, you're sacrificing basically all aspects of the tank, your health, your turning speed, just everything about it is just terrible. And I guess the real question we need to pose within this video is this a good thing for wargaming to start doing? Is releasing kind of underpowered premium tanks a good thing for the game again, rather than just constantly producing these broken premium tanks that you can only get if you pay money for? Like, for example, if you were to only release the FE4211 for people to actually purchase within the game, is that a good idea? Is it not a good idea? Obviously, leave your comments in the comment section down below. So it's something that I think we need to talk about and discuss, and obviously I'm not against creating Cold War content as much as I may not be the biggest fan of the game mode. I think that there is some value to it, and that's exactly what we're doing here, and it also is relevant to all of the World War II content as well, since we're directly comparing both World War II and Cold War premiums, and whether or not wargaming should go in the same route that the World War II mode has gone with its premium tanks, in the form of let's just create overpowered tanks and just keep one-upping. And that's kind of what's happened within that game mode, and why you're seeing so many kind of new premiums be better than the old ones. Take for example the CDC, which actually wasn't an awful tank when it was first released, but compare that to the current standard of premium tanks, it's terrible. There's no other way to really say or beat around the bush. It is just awful within the game. Obviously with this tank right here, it's just starting off awful. Whether wargaming will decide to buff this tank, I don't know, because essentially what you're playing is a tech tree Conqueror that you can get within the game for free. This is just a premium version. Yes, it does earn 55% extra silver, and yes, I have the pleasure of being able to review it and take it for a spin and decide whether or not I would actually spend money. And I can tell you instantly, this tank is not worth your money. If you are wanting to spend what, like like 14,000 gold that you have to actually spend on this tank if you want to purchase it right now. Spend your money somewhere else. It just is not a good tank. You're better off literally just completing the season pass, paying exclusively for gold to get the FE4211. This tank is just a worse version of that, and I don't really see why Wargaming introduced this within this era of kind of tanks. Obviously you can see here we've had an okay result, 5,600 damage, but this is the sort of result you'll probably be seeing like the maximum amount of damage that you're really going to realistically do, because it's a World War II tank but on Cold War, so you're coming up against tanks that have higher alpha, much better armour, and are faster generally than this thing. So there is really no benefit to playing this, unless of course you're playing the tech tree version within the current tech tree line in the Western Alliance. So it's kind of where the only real benefit of playing something like this is. Obviously we managed to come top in the game, picked up 280,000 silver. We did have an operation which was applied to the tank. I think we got a 1.5 times silver boost, so we still would have made like 190,000 silver, which would have been nice. But yeah, definitely one of the top results that you'll be seeing with the FE214 Conqueror Mark II. For the next section of the video, I want to be talking about Wargaming's current strategy within Cold War, because I think it's very relevant. We'll have a video coming up very soon talking between the differences between Cold War, World War II, which one would I actually prefer from certain aspects of the game. But in this video, let's talk about premium tanks, let's talk about Cold War as a general game mode, and what you guys think of it, because I don't dislike making content on the game mode. I think that there's a lot of aspects of the game mode that kind of reduce the skill cap in it. It makes it kind of easier for everyone to get involved in. But I think in terms of producing premium tanks, Wargaming, I guess from my point of view, got this tank actually right within the game. I don't think that you should be releasing overpowered premiums within the game, but I also don't think that if you're going to release like a premium like this, for example, that you should then be releasing premiums like the FE4211, which are just way better, and kind of make this just like a very sour taste in the mouth of anyone that maybe didn't understand how bad this tank actually was comparatively to the FE4211, and whether or not, like, you know, they feel comfortable in what they spent their money on, essentially, because you don't want people being upset that they've spent, you know, looking at £30 for a tank that's just absolutely diabolically bad. Yeah, I don't think that you want anyone really thinking that within the game that you're trying to promote and trying to grow, because on console that's essentially what Wargaming are trying to do. They're trying to appeal to the wider audience with the modern tanks, and if you're doing stuff like this, I don't know if it is working in the opposite direction to where you'd like it to go. Obviously with I guess Cold War at the moment, they're obviously trying to push a lot of content, which I'm not necessarily against, but I do think that there still needs to be a stream, whether it's as big of a stream as there is on Cold War, as there is on World War II even. But what I am liking with this tank, in particular comparatively to the World War II mode, is that it doesn't just feel overpowered, because on World War II this tank is amazing. The Conqueror is one of the best heavy tanks, and when it now comes up against a lot of the other tanks within Era 2, it feels very lackluster, and it feels like the kind of the underdog, and you really have to perform very well and place yourself, because placement in this tank is almost everything, because if you don't put yourself in the right position, you do not have the mobility to be able to actually get yourself into a different position and out of the terrible area that maybe you were. The 35 kilometers an hour, when you compare it to speed of heavy tanks in Cold War, is just not even comparable, and so I think that you also have that aspect of the Conqueror within the game. I think that for those of you, maybe you haven't actually seen any of the console content, maybe you're just kind of checking in to see what console are deciding to do, but I think that this is not necessarily the worst decision they've made in terms of a premium tank, but I definitely think they went a little bit too far in terms of making it somewhat uncompetitive for the majority of people. And you will see that throughout Wargaming's history. You know, they don't always get it right, so we can't expect them to get it right every single time, but hopefully they learn from the kind of underpoweredness, I don't know how you'd want to say it, but the lack of performance that this tank is going to be giving the people that buy it, as to, you know, trying to promote a kind of a healthy relationship between the people who play a game and the people that actually want to stay along and join for the ride. So hopefully they get that a little bit better than what they've done with this, and that it doesn't affect the game too much if they keep producing content like this. Although, you know, once you've set the precedent for releasing bad premiums, you can't then just come out and release an overpowered one, because yeah, you're going against everything that you were hoping to achieve at the beginning of the process. So yeah, I think that they need to be very, very mindful of that if they are to continue in the way that they are right now. Obviously, let me know what you think, because this is just my kind of rambling opinion on the Conqueror and this new premium tank that they've introduced that I actually think is good for the game. I think that, yeah, sometimes you do need to introduce a terrible one for people to realise, yeah, maybe I do want to spend my money on that. Maybe, you know, Wargaming aren't just producing broken tanks constantly. However, you know, how much development time actually went into this tank, considering it's just already in the game and you can play the tech tree version that probably didn't cost them barely anything to alter slightly in terms of the kind of rewards that you can get. And yeah, I think that we've got to talk about that, and it's something that I'm not against kind of showcasing on the channel, even if, you know, it is a terrible tank. Not every tank has to be overpowered and featured on the channel as such, so there's always that. 5,000 damage, you know, in Cold War, this is not an awful result. Sure, you're going to see people probably do 10k in the Conqueror Mark II, but you are very limited by just the fact of your ammo. You're also limited on kind of your mobility to get around the large maps that you can see in Cold War as well. So there's all of these little things that the Conqueror just doesn't do too well, and you can see here me trying to close in on the enemy base is just like, when you compare it to the other heavies, it's just that much slower. And although we can see a T-72A in the base, we're going to go around this side, but you can see already, like my team, the majority of heavy tanks have already caught up that small distance that there previously was within the game, and that really does cost this tank a lot, as opposed to just the armor model as well. So we've got to kind of make a holistic, realistic view and review of this tank to showcase whether or not you should actually purchase it. And definitely, in my opinion, this is a tank to avoid, almost pointless within the game. If you want to play a Conqueror, just literally grind down the tech tree and buy it that way. It's a much better, much more kind of cost-effective way of purchasing a tank within the game, because all you effectively need to do is play some games on Cold War, grinding through the tech tree leading up to it, which I think is, you know, is part of the game, and it won't cost you anything in the long run. Obviously, let me know your opinions on everything we've talked about. Do you think that the Conqueror Mark II is a terrible tank that should never be bought in the game? Are you liking the Conqueror Mark II? Maybe you purchased it and actually you disagree with the comments that I've made about it, and you actually enjoy playing with it. Or alternatively, do you like whether the way in which Wargaming are going with the premium tanks within Cold War now, the fact that they haven't just introduced another broken, overpowered one that is better than all of the tech tree tanks? Let me know. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, hit the like button, and also check out some of the other content which maybe you will enjoy too, which I will showcase on screen right now. Hope you have a fantastic rest of your week, and I hope you join me back in the next video. Goodbye.